بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كلية اهتمام كان أقسام الديوانية، قسم اللغة الإنجليزية، المرحلة الثالثة، مادة اللغة. المحاضرة الثانية. We talked about linguistics and the difference between linguistics and traditional grammar. The first point about descriptive and prescriptive. Now we are going to talk about a second difference between linguistics and traditional school grammar. This is the second difference, is that linguists, those who are specialized in linguistics, regard the spoken language as a primary rather than the written. Okay? What they consider the spoken language as a primary. Spoken is a primary, while written is not a primary, secondary. While grammarians have overstressed, overstressed the importance of the written word. You see here the difference? In short, linguists focus on the spoken word, while grammarians focus on the written word. It was difficult to cope with the fleeting utterances before the invention of sound recording. This is their justification why they focus on the written word. The traditional classical education was also partly to blame. People insisted on modeling language in accordance with the usage of the best authors of the ancient world. And these authors existed only in written form. You see? Here, grammarians, why they focus on written? Because they focus on the best authors. Because, for example, when they come to Plato, Aristotle, those have written forms, and those are models. Those are the best authors, so they depend on them. They depend on them when they want to have language. These authors existed only in written form, because they are in old times. So what we have about Plato, Aristotle, Horace, all we have about them is what is in written form, and their writings, their books are ideal, are perfect. So they say what they say, we have to follow these authors, we have to follow their written forms. This attitude began as far as back to the 2nd century BC, when scholars in Alexandria took the authors of 15, you see, as I told you, Greeks, the authors of 15th century Greece as their models. This is the point, because they think that the authors, the old authors, the ancient from the ancient times, like Horace, Aristotle, Plato, are the best, are models. And what we have about them is what? What we have about them is written form, not spoken. This belief in the superiority of the written word has continued for over 2 millennia. So this is the point here. They focus on written, while linguists focus on spoken. Why do they focus on written? Because they think that written form is the best, because it comes from the ancient authors from old times. These authors are models. These authors are the best and perfect. While linguists look first at spoken. Why? Which preceded. Why? Because they think that linguists say that preceded the written. Which comes first, spoken or written? We as human beings, we speak or we write first? Children, they speak or write? What do you think? They speak, then they write. So which preceded the written everywhere in the world, as far as we know. Moreover, most writing systems are derived from the vocal sounds. Okay, this is the second reason why they focus on spoken word. Writing system comes from where? From vocal sounds, from spoken. So writing comes from spoken, or writing comes from speaking. All the spoken utterances and written sentences share many common features. They also exhibit considerable differences. Still there are differences, though there are some similarities between them. So linguists regard spoken and written forms as belonging to different, though overlapping systems, which must be analyzed separately. The spoken first, then the written. Okay? Now we know the reason why they focus on the spoken, because they say that human beings first speak, then they write. Okay? And many writing systems are derived from the vocal sounds from speaking. That's why they focus on spoken word. Here we have a note inside. Spoken and written language need to be analyzed separately. Why? Separately, because they are different for them. Both are important and neither is better than the other. This is the second. A third way in which linguistics differs from traditional grammar. Third, grammar studies is that it doesn't force language into Latin. Doesn't force. Very important. خليك خطوة underline. Doesn't linguistics, okay, does not force languages into Latin-based framework. Latin-based framework doesn't force English. Those linguists, اللغويون, they don't force, for example, English, Arabic, Germanic into Latin-based framework. We talked about linguistics. It is the study of language. And a linguist is what? Is a person who is specialized in linguistics in all the world. General, this is general term. So here, it does not force languages. They don't want to force languages into Latin system. While grammarians in the past, many traditional textbooks have assumed unquestionably that Latin provides a universal framework into which all languages fit. And school children have been confused by meaningless attempts to force English into form. You see here, in short, to make it simple, سهلك إياها, linguists do not force languages into Latin, while traditional grammarian, no, they force languages into Latin. Why? Because they think that Latin provides a universal framework. They think that Latin, for them, Latin language is a universal, is perfect, and it can fit all languages. Okay? For example, here, how they force language? For example, when they come to Latin, they have, for example, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, interjection. They take these and put them, for example, into English or put them into Arabic. In this way, what we mean by force, for example, when we come to letters, how many letters in English, how many letters in Latin? For example, if we have 40 letters in Latin, so they say that, for example, all languages have to have 40 letters. This is traditional grammarian. But linguists, no, they don't want to force. They say that each language has its own system. This is the point. Each language has its own system. Each language has its own rules. We should not force the rules of Latin into any other languages. While traditional grammarians, no, they think that we should force Latin because Latin is universal. Latin is perfect. Latin is the language of philosophers. As I told you, here we have example phrase such as for John as a dative case, but this is blatantly untrue since English does not have a Latin case system. At other times, the influence of the Latin framework is more subtle and is more misleading. Many people have wrongly come to regard certain Latin categories as being natural. For example, it is commonly assumed that Latin tense division of past, present, and future are inevitable, yet one frequently meets languages which do not make this neat threefold distinction. In some languages, it is more important to express the duration of an action, where it is a single act or a continuing process than to look at. هذا شرح يعني نمشي عليه يعني شرح سريع. In addition, judges, we have additions. Here we have these points. We talked about them. Okay. The differences between grammarian and linguistics. First difference, they are prescriptive, while grammarians are descriptive and grammarian prescriptive. Grammarians, they say that we should put rules and people have to follow these rules, but linguistics, they say that we should not correct what people say, not what we say. Number two, they focus on spoken word. Linguistics, they focus on spoken, while grammarian, they focus on written. Why they focus on written? Because they think that this is the language of philosophers, like Plato, Aristotle, and it comes up for us written form. Sorry. Linguistics, they focus on what? They focus on spoken word because they think that spoken preceded written forms. Okay, and linguistics think that many writing systems come from vocal sounds. Okay, these are the two differences, and the third difference is that grammarians focus on Latin language, Latin system, okay, Latin rules, while linguistics, no, they say that we should not force the rules of Latin to any other language. Why? Because they think that each language has its own rules, each language has its own systems. While traditional grammarians, they say that we should force this language because it is perfect, it is a universal language. It is the language of philosophers. These are the main three differences. We have another differences between them. He judges on certain construction of a test out to have a Latin origin. For example, people frequently argue that good English avoids split infinitive. These are the examples. Okay, how they force Latin language. For example, split infinitive. How to split infinitive? In Latin, split infinitive. Avoid split infinitive. But in English, we can split infinitive. You have to read this example, very important. Okay, here we have this example. Each language must. So here we have this conclusion. To linguists, it is unthinkable to judge one language by the standards of another. Okay, this is for them. We should not judge. We should not judge any language by the standards, by the rules, by the principles of another language. We should not. Okay, and here we have example infinitive, split infinitive. Since split infinitive occur frequently in English, they are as correct as unsplit ones. Okay, here each language must be described separately and must never be forced into frame divides for another. This is the point of view by linguists. In brief, linguists are opposed to the notion that any one language can provide an adequate framework for all other. The same idea, نفس الفكرة. They are trying to set up a universal framework, and there is no reason why this should be or should resemble the grammar of Latin or grammar of any other language, arbitrarily selected from the thousands spoken by humans. Okay, we'll finish till this point, till the scope of linguistics. If you have any question, you can ask. Thank you so much.